Good evening. Welcome to the overnight edition of From Day One. And without further ado, the final portion of Art Bell and Richard Dolan.
Throughout the United States, the technology's been there for years, and I think that there is one there. I got the chance to meet Bob Lazar finally, just less than a year ago in Phoenix at the International UFO Congress, briefly, but it was nice to meet him. George Knapp, a friend of mine, introduced us. And Lazar actually gave a much better explication of a lot of what his experience was when he was there back in 1988-89. And yes, I thought he was credible to me. I think most people who listened to him thought he was credible as well. For many years, Stanton Friedman, who I consider a friend and a colleague, has always been a little unhappy with me. I think very unhappy with me because I do credit Lazar's story, but what can I say? I do. I dreaded researching it for my second volume of UFOs in the National Security State. There's so many minefields in the UFO subject, and Lazar's story is certainly one. But after I dove into it, I became very acquainted with it. I feel that he's not a liar, and I feel that I think he was telling the truth as he understands it.
Well, there's one measure that I use. I've been interviewing for years, forever it seems like, and I've noticed that people who tend to not tell the truth, the first time you hear their story, it's like, wow. And then the second time you hear their story, there are additional details. Okay, maybe. Third time you hear their story, there are amazing additional details. The thing about Bob Lazar is he always tells the same story.
Exactly, and he's never cared to speculate beyond what he experienced. He's always been very careful.
Even if you pull him, he doesn't. You're right.
And he's not afraid to say, I don't know. He said that many times. And he's just right. He's never gone. He said that he saw a number of flying discs. He saw what he called the sports model UFO. And he is very, very explicit, very particular about it.
Well, my feeling is that stuff is still there. It would be hard to move. It would be dangerous.
Yeah, exactly. I agree completely with that.
And it's just over the hill from me. You know where I am, right?
I can
actually look at a mountain range and it's right over there.
And, we say, well, it's the most well-known secret place in the world, but it really is secret. I mean, it's still impossible to get there, basically. And, when you're underground, you can do anything you want, basically. And I think that's what they do.
You bet your life. Literally. If you try to get there. So,
this is part of the really important element of the UFO mystery, which is the secret technology program, of which S4 is a part of, and I'm sure there are other facilities that are part of it. And I really think what they're trying to do, among other things, is weaponize this technology.
Yes.
Whether it's electromagnetic weapons or electro frequency or high-powered microwaves or propulsion technologies or material science, even mind control, I think, is one of the kinds of technologies that they're trying to weaponize based on their encounter with the UFO phenomenon. I think all of those are part of it. And to the people who have this technology, I think the stakes are very high because, if you're America running a global empire, you can't let any rivals get into the game like Russia or anyone else. So they want those weapons.
That's an awfully good question. I guess we know a little bit about our own country and how we've responded and what we don't talk about and what we do talk about. But what about the rest of the world? The Soviets, for example, China. Do you think they have had encounters that rival the things that have occurred here?
I think it's entirely possible. I think the Russians certainly have. I guess I'll just take the opportunity to plug a book I'm about to publish by two authors. One is a Russian he's anglicized named Paul Stonehill, and Philip Mantle, a UK author, and they're doing a book on Russian USOs, unidentified submersible objects. And this is, I think, the first ever study of this, and I'll have it out probably by the fall. But the fact is that the Russians have a long history of spectacular encounters with UFOs. And, during the breakup of the Soviet Union, we learned a lot about them. This was the real moment in Russian history where information came out. It was like their version of freedom of information.
Right.
And KGB files became available and much more. So we know that there were some serious military encounters, and they may have had their own versions of Roswell in places like Downlagorsk in 1986 and a few others. So, yeah, I think that it's very likely that they have their own knowledge of this program, and they may share or not share to some degree with the United States. That's a question I don't know the answer to. Chinese, probably the same thing. There was a story that came to me by a fellow named Scott Jones. He's still alive, retired Navy pilot, and was a former aide to this Rhode Island Senator Claiborne Pell, who was very interested in UFOs for years, kept it very quiet. Scott Jones, on behalf of Pell, one time went to China. This is early 90s. This is like before China went through their own major industrial revolution. But one of the reasons he actually went was to get a sense of Chinese UFO research, believe it or not, and he was impressed. He said they had a lot of PhDs, a lot of smart people doing sophisticated work, and he said, you guys are way ahead of anything that I'm aware of in American civilian UFO research. What are you waiting for? And the answer that came to him is they said, we're waiting for the U.S. to take the lead on this.
Really?
That's what Jones said to me and probably to other people. That's early 90s. Now, who knows what the situation is today. I think Russia and China are wild cards in this. I speculate that I don't think that they have a real motivation any more than America to give up the UFO secret, but you never know. I think the real problem that any of these nations have in giving up the secret is oil. When you give up the secret, you say, yes, some of these UFOs actually are not ours. They are using revolutionary technology. One of the first questions that's going to be out of the gate is, well, what's their source of energy? It's obviously not high-octane petroleum. Right. That's going to take them from point A to point B. It's going to be something better. Whatever that source is, implicit in the answer to the UFO mystery is a post-petroleum civilization, and that is such a massive transformation. And Russia, I don't really think, has any more of a motivation than America.
All right. I've got to hold it right there. Stand by. I'm sorry. I have these absolute deadlines. This is midnight in the desert.
Understand how to move in the darkness, like Art Bell. To call the show, please dial 1-952-CALL ART. That's 1-952-225-5278.
Sometimes you want to hear the rest of the story. Sometimes you want to hear the rest of the song. Hi, everybody. I am Art Bell. My guest is Richard Dolan, and in this last hour, I would like to open the lines. Now, this will take a slight bit of explanation as we are new. As you all know, we're very new. So to ask a question, to call us, number one, I would suggest at your first opportunity that you put Skype on your telephone. Got a smartphone? Apple, Android, whatever. Put Skype on your phone and then kind of try to call us. And by that I mean put in, if you're in North America, Canada, MITD 51. That's the way to get us on Skype, MITD 51. And then it'll be on your list of people you call, and you can punch it up at any time. If you're outside of North America, too simple, you put in MITD 55. MITD 55. Beyond that, we have a public line. So if you have a question for Richard, here is the number. Area code 952-225-5278. Once again, 952-225-5278. Richard, we will go to the phones in a moment. I want to find out, though, if you want to finish a thought or, get another one out before we do.
Oh gosh, I don't know. I've really enjoyed my my time here with you, Art. We've had a lot of different things that we've been talking about. I guess if I were to finalize any of my thoughts on the subject before we hit the phones, I would just say I think the UFO subject really does constitute the greatest mystery of our time. I've been saying this for a while lately. I really believe it's true, and I say it because I think it affects every facet of human civilization that really matters, and our politics, our science, who we are existentially. That is, what are human beings vis-a-vis any other beings that are here looking at us? With the nature of space-time reality itself. There are just so many leading-edge issues that this subject of UFOs touches upon, and the fact that it gets really no love from the establishment media tells me that there's something very, very significant going on. You've got this very important topic, and it is absolutely forbidden to this day to get a serious hearing on the mainstream. There's some cable stations, History Channel, Sci-Fi, that'll do a UFO documentary, but really nothing for the establishment, what I like to call the official reality. The major networks, things like that, they will not touch it. It is not part of that reality.
All right.
And that's a problem.
All right, let's do it. Baton Rouge, Louisiana, you're on the air.
Hello?
Hello?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you.
Who is this?
Who were you expecting? This is Art Bell. Richard Dolan is my guest. Right?
Oh, hey, Art. This is, Scotty.
Scotty, go ahead.
Wow, I'm surprised I actually got on air. I didn't expect it.
Well, when you're dialing, you should be prepared to, do something, like ask a question. You know what happens to people? They freeze. They actually get through.
Yeah, I do too.
They're not ready, and they freeze.
Richard Dolan, you related to James Dolan?
Not to my knowledge. Who's James Dolan?
I believe he's part owner of the Knicks, right?
Oh gosh, yeah, I wish that would be nice. There's a Charles Dolan who owns, I think it's Cablevision or something like that on Long Island. No, in fact, my Dolan family, I can tell you, my father, whose name is also Richard T. Dolan, is the only one in his family with that name. It's everyone else that he's related to has a different last name, and my dad grew up not even knowing his father.
Hey, you were talking about ufology, right?
Yes.
You're a UFO guy?
That's what we've been talking about all night.
Yeah. I was gonna. Can I tell you a quick story?
You may.
I used to be in the Navy. One time I was in the we're in the northern Arabian Gulf. We were supporting during Operation Enduring Freedom, and I just saw three lights just streak across the sky. That's just something I sighted. I can't really explain it.
Most people can't. They have a sighting and they can't explain it.
There are a number of sightings that have been reported via the U.S. military from the the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. Even on YouTube, you can find a lot of soldiers with recording night vision, seeing some really bizarre things. What those could be. One of the things that researchers have to keep in mind is that classified drone technology is, I think, really going to be off the charts advanced. Doesn't mean that these sightings aren't interesting, but particularly in a military context, it's almost impossible to tell what you're dealing with these days.
It's true. All right, let's try Kurt on Skype. Hello, Kurt. You're on with Richard Dolan.
No way.
Yes, way.
Oh my goodness. Oh, shit. Oh.
Okay, go ahead.
Have you ever read Ezekiel chapter 1?
The Bible.
Yeah.
Are you you're talking about Ezekiel's sighting, the famous wheel?
Yes, the wheels in the sky and color lights and crazy-looking features. Actually, that's kind of an interesting direction to go, in a way. Richard, what do you think?
Yeah, the passage that the call is referring to, I don't have it right in front of me, but I think many people interested in this have read it. I've read it. In Ezekiel, he has a vision of a particular structure coming from the heavens, operated, I think, by four angels, four celestial beings.
Right.
One of the interesting things about that, back in the 60s, there was a fellow named William, I think, Blumenthal or Blumenreich or something, who said, well, this is all nonsense. He was an engineer, and he said, I'm going to prove that this is nonsense. And what he ended up doing is, based on what he read in the Ezekiel passage, he realized he was able to build an interesting aero structure, I guess, and became a believer. And he wrote a book called, I think, something like Building Ezekiel's Wheel or something like that. I've got it in my library. So it's interesting. I mean, the thing about the ancient UFO connection, there are some very fascinating and suggestive stories in our ancient history about what we might call UFOs. And there was no UFO investigative groups back then. There was no one taking reports from witnesses. What we have are some scattered stories and a few rock paintings and a few paintings and oral traditions. And so it's really not a lot to go on. They're just stories. But I would say some of them are interesting, for sure. Not just Ezekiel is one out of ancient Egypt from the dynasty of Akhenaten. I think it was Hatshepsut, one of the few female pharaohs of the time, or she was in that family. And there was a case of a star-like or a sun-like object appearing for several days and terrifying the Egyptians, and they made offerings to it. And no one really figured this out. There's a Russian case from the 17th century that has been written about by a number of people, including Jacques Vallée, 1663, in which a remote village, people were terrified to see this object come over their village, leave, and come back. It was a bright, burning kind of thing. It killed the fish, burned people. It seemed to be intelligently controlled, and it was written about, and it was found in the records of a monastery in the year 1800, and it was just this forgotten story. And there's a number of these types of things, and the question is, what are they?
The Vatican has been saying interesting things, more sort of progressively more interesting things about the possibility of life elsewhere.
I think they're covering their bets, honestly. I think the Vatican, look, they're a 2,000-year-old institution. I do think that they've had some secrets that they've acquired over the years, and maybe they are covering their bets. I do wonder.
Mike, you're on the air with Richard Dolan. Hi.
Hi, Eric. It's a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you.
I have my fiancée here, Heidi. We've been listening to you both for 20 years, and it's such a delight. We used to listen to that other show with George Snorri, and put us to sleep, but now we're having to stay awake, and it's terrible. But anyway, good show. Nevertheless, our question is with regards to Bob Lazar.
Yes.
He has a pretty amazing story for what it sounds like, but when we have Stan Friedman, who calls him a fraud, I was wondering what both you, Art, and I know you've interviewed Bob in the past, and Mr. Dolan, what do you think about Bob Lazar and the story and his credibility?
Yeah, we actually just covered that, to be honest with you, and I think his story has a very great deal of credibility with me because I have interviewed him a number of times. The story never changes, and so we did just cover that. You must have missed it.
Yeah, and I essentially had the same opinion. I wrote about Bob Lazar at some length in Volume 2 of UFOs and the National Security State, and I really sweated that one out, by the way. I put about 10 pages into Bob Lazar's story, and I think he's not lying. I think he's telling the truth as he understands it. That does not mean that everything he told is exactly scientifically correct. It is entirely possible. We didn't get into this part. I think it's possible that Bob Lazar was intentionally given some information that may not have been true. I do think it's possible he may have been psychologically profiled as someone who might be inclined to talk. This is only my own speculation. Because I think that actually the mechanism that he describes of the propulsion, which he talks about at element 115, jokingly referred to by physicists as unobtainium because it's so impossible to get. Whereas you have alternate ideas about flying discs that have it relying on things like zero-point energy, a totally different type of mechanism. My guess is that if it was zero-point energy, this is a story that came out in 1988, by the way, out of Lockheed's Helendale facility by a guy named Brad Sorens. And if that's the case, then if you have a guy like Lazar saying, well, it's element 115, any competitor trying to build their own flying saucer would think, oh, man, forget it. How do we get element 115? Let's just give up.
Yeah.
In other words, Lazar's story could actually be, without him even realizing, a form of disinformation designed against competitors.
Right.
Just a thought.
He saw what he saw, heard what he heard. In Ohio, you're on the air. It's midnight. Hi.
Yeah, hi, Art. This is Jerry from Ohio.
Hi, Jerry.
Hi. I got a question for Richard.
Okay. Turn off your device, please. It'll confuse you mightily and me a little.
Okay.
Okay, excellent. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was wondering if he's familiar with Sitchin, and I'm kind of curious about us going into Iraq the last time, and the museum there being raided, and I would believe a lot of Sumerian texts missing. How does he feel about how this relates to the UFO and possibly what's really going on?
Yeah, Zacharias Sitchin recently died a couple of years ago. For anyone who doesn't know, was best known as someone who was able to read ancient Sumerian cuneiform texts, which is not, something that everyone can read. And did, I guess, what we can call like a literal interpretation of the stories that he read. He didn't interpret them as myth; he interpreted them as possibly history. And so this had to do with the race that he talked about, known as the Anunnaki, which arrived almost 500,000 years ago, and on and on. I'm of mixed feelings about Sitchin, and in fact, I do think that there have been some very strong critiques of his work. In particular, there is a cylinder seal he talked a lot about, known as VA-243, in which Sitchin said this has a sun-like image with lots of planets, and in fact, many more planets than the Sumerians were supposed to have known about, and this was one of his pieces of evidence. It's been alternately interpreted, however, and actually my friend and colleague Michael Heiser's talked a bit about this, and he said the sun image on that seal is actually not the Sumerian symbol for the sun. It was only a star, as are the surrounding circles. I don't think it is what Sitchin interpreted. In other words, at least there's a real good reason. There are claims that the U.S. went into Iraq for esoteric reasons having to do with these ancient mysteries. I think the U.S. went into Iraq for a lot of reasons. Certainly theft is the biggest one, but theft over some of the ancient things in the Baghdad Museum. Well, that museum was systematically plundered during the first week of the U.S. occupation, and no one stopped it. This was a huge news story at the time. I don't know if people remember this. And the people running the museum were pleading with the world and pleading with the Americans, who had like a tank and a detachment like 2 blocks over during the whole raiding of that museum. And no one did a thing. They allowed that museum to be picked clean by people who knew exactly what they were doing. So, in fact, there's a lot of reasons you might steal out of the Baghdad Museum, not simply esoteric secrets, but maybe there's something to it.
Okay. A lot of people. James, you're on the air.
Art Bell.
Yes.
the master, you are back on the radio. It's so good to hear your voice again.
Thank you.
Richard, you are also one of the best. Thank you for everything that you've done. We've tried to learn a lot from you guys. It's just great to be able to talk to you.
Thanks very much. Thank you.
Hey, I jumped in a little late. I'm not sure if you guys touched on MJ12, but I just wanted to hear your thoughts on whether you figured that was legitimate or not.
Actually, good one. No, we haven't.
Yeah, it's a great question. That's another of the minefields, one of the dangerous mines in the UFO field. My take on MJ12, and again, for anyone who doesn't know, these are documents that were leaked or intentionally leaked back in 1980s, that were purportedly a briefing to President-elect Dwight Eisenhower on the alien extraterrestrial situation. And then, let's just add that during the 1990s, a large number of documents that are collectively known as the Majestic documents also came out, and Ryan and Bob Wood primarily have done a great amount of research on those. My take on the MJ12 documents is that they are probably a form of disinformation, but saying that is not the same as saying that they're lies. Disinformation can't work if it's all lies. It has to be credible, it has to be believable. So there's got to be things in there that are legitimate. My take on MJ12 is that it was part of a way to disable the threat that the UFO community was posing at that moment. You had the Freedom of Information Act of the 1970s, which was really a threat. You also had crash retrieval stories coming out in the late 70s. Not just Roswell, by the way, but others. And I think this was a 1-2 punch that actually was a threat. So now enter the MJ12 documents in the 1980s, which we're still arguing about to this day, 30 years later. I think it is entirely possible that these were either derived from real and existing documents, modified in ways to make them not believable, or maybe just created out of whole cloth.
But bottom line,
the Majestic documents that follow, I'm not as inclined to dismiss. I think some of those are probably legit. That's my opinion.
All right, hold tight. We'll be right back. So, bottom line, disinformation. This is Midnight in the Desert. I'm Martin.
Exclusively on the Dark Matter Digital Network with Art Bell. Invite you to call now. 1-952-CALL ART. That's 1-952-225-5278.
Those are that's the public number, actually. We've also got, of course, Skype access for you. North America, get us at MITD 51, MITD 51. The rest of the world, MITD 55, MITD 55. Ring us up, and we'll be happy to talk to you. Richard Dolan, obviously a brilliant guy in the world of ufology, talking about exactly that. Richard, welcome back. Let's see if we can cover some territory.
Thanks. It's really been a lot of fun. I really love doing this show with you.
Thank you. You're a good guest. Lexington, Texas. Is that right?
Hi, this is Mary.
Hi, Mary.
Hi, Art. How are you doing?
Just fine.
Good. Well, it's really nice to talk to you and to your guest, Richard. And I have a real quick UFO story to tell you.
Okay.
On January 7th, about 2 a.m. in the morning, my husband had just gotten home from running at the track. He works late. So we began to hear a really loud rumbling noise. And it just continued, and it was uneven. It wasn't smooth like a jet or anything, and it just got louder and louder. It sounded like it was passing right overhead. So we ran outside and looked at the sky, and at first we didn't see anything, but whatever it was sounded massive. And we separated kind of in a vertical line. And my husband, my night vision's not too good, but he said there were some smaller red lights on there. And the noise that it was making was something neither one of us had ever heard before, and he's very interested in aircraft and that sort of thing.
Okay, so not a helicopter.
No, it was massive, because by the time it got far enough away from us to the northwest, the width of the lights was so large, even from a distance, that it had to be huge. And the closest I can get to the sound, I was listening to different things on YouTube, the closest I can get to the sound was the noise that the mothership made when it came over the mountain in Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Oh, my.
Yeah. Mary, did you say where you live, or where you were when you saw it?
Yes, I live right between Austin and College Station in Lexington, Texas.
Texas, and were you able to see a shape, or was it lights only, or was your husband able to see a shape?
No, we just saw lights, and what was weird was when it seemed right overhead, we couldn't see anything. And that was what was so strange. We didn't really see much of anything until it moved towards the northwest. And then we saw the light.
It was January 7th.
January 7th, about 2 a.m. in the morning.
Well, I think it's fascinating. I mean, in my view, it could be something that they made, or it could be something that we made. I'm of the opinion that there's a substantial, highly classified, what often I've called a breakaway civilization, that is classified civilization that's so advanced that they're basically different from our own, and they're using radical technology that includes black triangles, I think in some cases, and maybe other types of crafts. What I would say is that there is a massive infrastructure that is beyond what we are supposed to be dealing with in our day-to-day life, and that infrastructure, some of it belongs to human beings, and I think some of it does not. There's a lot of activity, and you and your husband, I think, encountered it.
Okay. All right, very quickly, Nancy, in Lincoln something, you're on the air.
Yeah, this is Bill calling from Bellevue, Washington.
Oh, that says Nancy, but okay.
Okay. I have a question for Richard. Richard, could you comment on the story of President Eisenhower possibly meeting face-to-face with extraterrestrials? And also, could you tell us what you know of what you've heard of a Holloman landing?
Those are both great things to discuss. The Eisenhower story actually leaked, or the version of it leaked almost immediately back in 1954 by really the guy who was the Art Bell of his day, Frank Edwards, radio man who was very involved in the flying saucer mystery at that time. Frank Edwards somehow got wind of the fact that Eisenhower went to Edwards Air Force Base and might have met with extraterrestrials. This was a rumor back then. There had been a number of other witnesses who have supported or corroborated that claim that there was a very, very major event at Edwards and that it seemed to involve UFOs, extraterrestrials. There's no confirmation on this, and I don't know. I mean, I actually can see the logic of it. 1954 was just when the United States was about to start detonating hydrogen bombs.
That's right.
Orders of magnitude beyond the atomic bombs. And maybe this is what got their attention. There is a real possibility that they're interested in our nuclear technology.
All right. Holloman, we're going to have to hold.
And I think that was a landing.
All right. Well, we'll expand on that. We're at the bottom of the hour. Last break, and we'll be right back. Well, almost right back.
For Dark Matter News, I'm Leo Ashcraft. Not a sport you'd usually associate with Japan, golf had its true boom during the 1980s. However, the leisurely sport is seeing a recent decline in interest. So what do you do with a land of many massive golf courses, long abandoned after golfers are no longer in play? Japanese electronics manufacturer Kyocera have a hole-in-one plan to turn these large expanses of open land into solar energy power sources. Nuclear energy has fallen out of favor with the population since the 2011 Fukushima disaster. Turning to solar may give the country an alternative, renewable, and environmentally friendly source of energy. A new Android hack can take over your phone without any interaction from you, and the vast majority of Android devices are vulnerable. Researchers at Zimperium Mobile Labs, where it was discovered by the Vice President of Platform Research and Exploitation, Joshua Drake. He claims that up to 95% of Android devices are vulnerable. To initiate the attack, the hacker sends a maliciously modified video message. They'd have near full access to your device, its storage, its camera, and microphone. It's said that the device may start processing the message without the user opening the message manually. They think the bug was introduced in Android 2.2, but Zimperium has tested it on builds as recent as the latest release, Android 5.1 Lollipop. Devices running a build older than Jelly Bean 4.1 are said to be most vulnerable. However, Google only recently released a fix that can remove and prevent the bug with an over-the-air update. The bad news is it's up to device manufacturers to send out the patch, and that can take a while. If you've got an older phone that hasn't been updated in ages, as in the case of nearly 11% of active Android phones, it's feasible that it won't get a patch at all. At this point, it's not clear if there's anything Android users can do to protect themselves from this exploit. Is the Jade Helm 15 exercise involving hundreds of U.S. Special Operations troops that began this month in the Southeast really an exercise involving the use of artificial intelligence? Analysts say it's possible, and that they believe JADE is an acronym for a Defense Advanced Research Project Agency. DARPA developed artificial intelligence quantum computing technology that is capable of producing holographic battlefield simulations. The technology, they say, is heading up the drill in order to master the human domain and learn to predict human responses. A YouTube user by the handle of Level 9 News has posted a 38-minute YouTube video explaining why she believes that Jade Helm is an alcentric exercise. Under the headline, Rise of the Machines, she wrote the Jade Helm is simply an artificial intelligence quantum computing technology that can produce the holographic battlefield simulations and, in addition, has the ability to use vast amounts of data being collected on the human domain to generate human terrain systems in geographic population-centric locations. All of this used as a means for identifying and eliminating targets, insurgents, rebels, or whatever labels that can be flagged as targets in a global information grid for network-centric warfare environments. In a possibly related story, Windows 10 to be released this month will be equipped with a virtual assistant called Cortana. This virtual assistant will automatically display the kind of thing you like, based upon your interest. This means that the virtual assistant will be analyzing your behavior. Second, and most importantly, is the fact that this virtual assistant does not limit itself in replying to simple questions, but can interact with you and even send an email.
She's incredibly smart because her intelligence is based in the cloud, and she's scouring the internet, learning about everything.
To listen to the complete and detailed report, visit darkmatternews.com. I'm Leo Ashcraft for Dark Matter News.
Richard Dolan, cutting through the BS. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, whatever the case is. Once again, here's Richard and Holloman. Very quickly, we got to kind of cut off there.
Right, we talked about that. Yeah, I think that that actually, I think, did happen. That was a landing that probably occurred in April 1964. And in fact, it would have occurred one day after the very famous sighting of a landed craft by New Mexico policeman Lonnie Zamora, which there's been some speculation that there may have been a connection between those two. But anyway, there's a long-time story, and this was another thing that leaked out right away. It came to researchers known as James and Coral Lorenzen, very prominent back in the 60s, that there was something that happened at Holloman, and it could have been a landing of some sort of craft. This was discussed and even done in a documentary to some extent by Bob Emenegger in a film he did back in the, I guess it was back in the 70s, and Bob's still around to talk about it. But I think that they're very likely could have been an actual landing. I mean, these things sound crazy to someone who's never studied UFO history, I realize, but actually there are some reasons to credit these stories, I think.
Okay. All I can go by is what it says on the phone. North Hollywood, I think. You're on the air.
Yes, sir. Hi, Art. Yeah, my name's Ronald, and I'm actually in Los Angeles. I'm in Malibu right now.
Okay.
You know, Art, so I talked to you on the break, and I said that I had the solution, and I just wanted to get it out there because I think it's important.
The solution
to how we can secure all of the information about these questions that we've been asking. I know you didn't come back from retirement or vacation just to keep asking the same question over and over again.
Got that right.
We are questioned out. And I started thinking about that a while ago, and I decided to write a book. And if I can say the name of the book, I'll say it. It's fine. But I wrote it in a book, which is available on Amazon. And
shameless plug. All right, what's the name of the book?
The Second Coming of the Messiah, about a Pentagon analyst who comes up with a solution to stop the global military-industrial complex and eradicate the monetary system. And the global military-industrial complex is all of the governments that are actually posing as governments that are really corporations. And the word government actually translates into mind control. So the 5-step solution is this. Everybody, step 1 is on planet Earth, all human beings, because this is a human problem, especially with what's going on in Fukushima. All human beings, step 1, secure their certificate of live birth. That gives us all control over our vessel again.
Right.
Step two, we all secure the manufacturer statement of origin for automobiles. That gives us control over our vehicles. They can't tow those away from us anymore. When you buy your car, you just get a certificate of title, and then you sign away the MSO. Step 3, everybody gets the grade deed for their land. Now their land can no longer be taken away. Now on one day, everybody, even military and police, on step 4, tear up their national ID card. This gets rid of the global military-industrial complex because there are now no more corporations because they have no more employees.
And step 5?
Employees through step 5, burn all of the currency.
Burn all of the currency, all right.
Eradicate them.
Listen,
that's my solution.
Don't burden yourself with step 5. Send it off to me. UPS. I'll give you an address, right?
I'll just jump in real quickly, and I thought the caller, he's talking about corporations essentially posing as nations posing as corporations. No, corporations posing as nations. I think that's right. I mean, I think what we're in an era of basically transnational corporate control over our reality, and we kind of touched on that earlier in the program. In terms of solutions, with respect to the caller, there are always people who come in with the solution to all of the world's problems, and I just don't think it's that simple. Never have. He's not the first, and I'm sure he won't be the last to have solved how to fix all of it.
Right.
Just like that, it's just something that's going to happen.
All right, Amy, you're on the air on Skype.
Hi, Art. Amy here in the Midwest. Huge fan since I was a little girl.
Thank you.
Long story short, can you hear me?
Sure.
Okay. Long story short, now I'm into neuro research, and I hope to be a guest on your show someday, if not replace Leo.
Amy, did you say neuro research?
Yes, that's correct.
You might contact me by email.
Certainly.
Right.
Just want to make a quick shout out to Chet, Skinny Lazy on Twitter, as well as all of my followers on Haunted Skeptic.
Okay.
So my question for Richard, perhaps it will speak to your expertise on the subject matter of UFOs and the national security state. You mentioned a lot tonight about disinformation, credibility, MJ12, and whatnot. According to some sources, your own pathways to disinfo started innocently with your involvement with the alleged Servo hoax. That's alleged. That's what I've heard. That's what I've read.
I've never been
my next question. I didn't know whether or not you were aware of your portrayal in Mark Pilkington's book Mirage Fin, and I wanted to know basically what you thought of that. And,
did he actually connect me to Serpo in that? I wasn't aware that he had done that.
Don't quote me on that, but I do think your name did come up in association with that.
Well, he interviewed me for that over a decade ago, and I actually do not know what I said for him in that documentary, but I think he did record me over 10 years ago. But I can tell you, I've had no connection whatsoever to Serpo in any remote fashion whatsoever. The Serpo documents arose about 10 years ago, I guess. They were popularized by Bill Ryan, and who later became connected with Kerry Cassidy and Project Camelot. They tell a fascinating story, but, I've never said that they were legit ever.
Okay?
Okay.
All right, Amy, thank you very much. Let's go, let's go here to the phone. You're on the air.
Hey, Art, how you doing, buddy?
Doing fine. Where are you, out of curiosity?
I'm in Orlando.
Orlando, Florida. Okay.
Yes, sir. It's nice to talk to you. It's a real privilege, Art.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Dolan, you there?
Yeah, right here.
Hey, nice to talk to you. Just wanted to ask you, Richard, a lot of stuff that I see on Facebook and on the internet and stuff, they're talking about some kind of spiritual enlightening that's supposed to be coming towards September. Everybody's pointing to September. Nibiru, I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Yeah, he's right about that. Everybody's talking about September.
Yeah, September, like specifically like 24th, 25th, or something like that. And the Pope's here in town, or here in, not in my town, but you know what I mean.
Another prediction. Listen, isn't anyone other than myself tired of the predictions? Doesn't anyone but myself think that predictions are one of the banes of this field? We were supposed to have Ascension in 2012. Anyone remember that? Oh yeah, that didn't happen. You were supposed to have 51% positive karma, and then, hey, you would ascend after December 21, 2012. There was nearly a 10-year buildup for that one. A lot of wasted energy and time. There was supposed to be the comet Elanine. This was promoted by Richard Hoagland, among other people, back in 2011. That was supposed to be Nibiru also, if you recall. This is such an old theme, and I would have thought that the 2012 Ascension would have put all of that to rest, but no, apparently people have to continue to make their predictions over imminent salvation from galactic space brothers or what have you. And look, I'm just reminded of P.T. Barnum, a sucker is born every minute. It just never seems to change. Look, predictions are not what we really need to be about. Okay, we need to really take a cold eye and look at the world around us. That includes the UFO situation. That includes a lot of other things, and deal with what we have to deal with, rather than waste our energies. And I really mean this. Maybe that's disinformation. All right. In other words, when you've got something really important going on, and people are continually being led down these fantasy paths that end up giving us nothing. They give us nothing at all. So
of course, one of these days, Richard, maybe they'll be right, and there'll be nobody around to say "I told you so."
Well, if they're ever right, then we can all put our heads between our knees and kiss our butts goodbye.
That's right.
And it won't matter. But no, the predictions. This is just a little pet peeve of mine. I mean, I'm at the point where I used to laugh. I still laugh at them, but I think that they're actually a problem in this field.
Well, they are. Jordan, you're on the air on Skype. Hi.
Hey, Art. I just have two comments, and then I'll take the answer off the air. My first comment is regarding the Philadelphia experiment, and I wanted to see if he had any knowledge of maybe hyperspace was actually figured out there, and maybe that was another reason why we were visited by UFOs. And my second question was the Wikileaks about the UFOs in Antarctica. And I'll take my question off the air.
All right.
Cool. I'll deal with the second one first. WikiLeaks connection to Antarctica UFOs. I have to admit, I have not heard that. I would like to learn about that. that's something that is actually tangible that I can research to see whether or not that's true. This is the first time I'm hearing about it, and for that reason I'm a little dubious about the validity of it, but I will just say I'll look into it. Relating to the Philadelphia experiment, I mean, this is... I never know what to make of some of these stories where there's just so much lore associated. I know the origin of the story, and it's very tough to know one way or another how true it is. I'm always most comfortable trying to deal with what I think is verifiable fact, that is government archived information, not disputed, not leaked, not anything like that. The Philadelphia experiment is one of these stories where it's legend. I don't know if it's true or not. The same with the story that's connected to it, the Montauk Project story. I don't know if these have any truth or not to them. You've got people talking an interesting game, and that's about it. Nothing to support it.
Okay.
So don't really know.
Okay, Williamsport somewhere on the phone. You're on the air.
Okay. Hello.
Hi.
Art.
Yes.
My name is Ted, also known as Bomar. Richard, can I ask you a question about orange orbs?
Yeah, please.
Cool. Back in '69, July 2nd, I was hiking on a mountain. I didn't get into the Farragut, Idaho jamboree, and I was just goofing around on the mountains one evening. Orange orb came down, enveloped me. I woke up about 2 hours later. Since then, I haven't been able to read. But if I put a book under my pillow, I know everything that's in the book. My IQ's been measured about 190. I've spent 13 years in college. I'm a high-energy nuclear engineer, theoretical mathematician, just a goof-off. Have you heard about this happening to other people?
Well, you had me at Orange Orb, and then you lost me at 190, so let me just Google.
No, it's my IQ. It's just
I know that's what you said it is.
We got that, but
if you actually had an IQ of 190, you'd probably be one of the top 10 most intelligent people in the entire world. And I mean, if that's the case, then good for you. As far as the orb goes, there are a lot of Orange Orb stories. I've gotten them from individuals that I know very well and that I know are truthful with me. Now, I think the Orange Orb phenomenon is real. They seem to be intelligent. There's a number of these cases where there seems to be a telepathic kind of connection between the orb and the person, to the extent that someone wakes up at like 2 in the morning and they have an urge to look out their bedroom window and voila, there's an orb out there. There's something going on, and I've heard these stories many times, not just a few times. So I think this is a real thing. In terms of everything that you're saying it did to you or for you, I don't know how to comment on that. I'm not aware of anyone having experience with these things and they suddenly are no longer able to read, or if the orb somehow affects one's intelligence or anything like that. I don't know. That's something that's completely foreign to my research.
I love people who say, I don't know, when they don't know. Here in Pahrump, Nevada, I think you're my first caller from Pahrump, Nevada. You're on the air.
Yeah.
Hello.
How you doing? Good to have you back. This is Rob from Pahrump.
Hi.
How you doing?
Fine.
Question for Richard. Have you ever heard of a craft looks like a cloud, a black cloud? It didn't really have a
well, there are cases of objects, but people saying an object was disguised as a cloud or it moved, but it looked like a cloud. A black cloud, I don't know.
This was pretty distinct. I mean, I came out of my house the other day, and a beautiful blue sky. There was a couple of white billowy clouds, and there was one black cloud all by itself, and all the clouds were moving like towards Area 51, northeast, and this one went the opposite way and just left.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
We do live.
I would guess experiment.
We do live in an area that just has sighting after sighting after sighting, Richard. This is an amazing area. I mean, there are no two ways about it. We're close to Area 51.
I mean, that's a heck of an interesting thing. My go-to position wouldn't be UFO, but my go-to position would be some kind of U.S. military shenanigans.
Absolutely. There are plenty of them out here. If you live here, you see it all the time. We're coming toward the end of the show, so I want to give you shameless plug time. Whatever you want to plug.
Well, yeah, every day I live, my life is like a blizzard. Every single day, there's no exception. I write and I publish. So I have a company called Richard Dolan Press, and I publish my books, but also books by other really cool, fascinating authors. One is Dr. Bruce Maccabee, very well known in the UFO field.
Oh, yes.
Publishing his second book this summer. I've got one coming out that is actually one of the most exciting books I've published in a long time by a fellow named Mike Cleland on encounters, but this is one of the most original books on encounters that's been done maybe since Whitley Strieber's books, and I'm not hyping it. I think this is really true. On various types of bizarre synchronicities in the UFO encounter experience, and I'm sure that'll make a big splash. I'm working on my own book, which is not a UFO book. I mean, I'm working on volume 3 of my National Security State series, but I'm also working on a history of what are known as false flag operations. This is a very big thing that I've been working on for the past 6-8 months. I think that we live in an era of false flags, actually, and what I'm trying to do is set out why I think we live in such an era, and try to have an analytical approach so that we can identify them when they come down the road. But my website is richarddolanpress.com. A lot of my articles are there, books, YouTube videos, and the like.
All right. So, do you want to give out your personal cell phone number?
Not yet.
No. Okay, then we'll have to settle for what we got. It's been a pleasure having you on the air, and how about doing another show on false flags?
Oh, I'd be very happy to do that, Art.
It's been an honor. It really has. You're a bright guy. Thank you, Richard.
Thank you very much.
Good night. And speaking of Richards, coming...
And with that, we will bring that to a close. Come on back tomorrow for a brand new topic as we continue to march through Dominion. Until then, like, share, and subscribe, be kind to one another, and release the Krakens as we march this overnight and every overnight here from day one. Have a great night's sleep. We'll see you all tomorrow. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe.